Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Howdy Bean. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Today, we're going to be doing a book review of Halo Envoy, part of my Road to Halo Infinite series, but I'll get into all that in a minute. First, I've got to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter at howdybeans_pod. Also, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Same if you're listening on Spotify. Don't forget to follow the podcast and to leave a 5-star rating. You can also now find me on TikTok and Instagram. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you'll find me there. So, as I mentioned, for anybody that doesn't know, anybody that's new, welcome. Anybody that's returning, thank you. Who doesn't know that this is my Road to Halo Infinite series. And what that basically means, the long and short of it, is that I played Halo Infinite when it first came out. I played it for about an hour, and I had no idea what was going on, what was the story, what was the plot, what I was doing. I was basically, for all intents and purposes, confused. And I've never had that before in any other Halo game I've ever played. I grew up on Halo. I love it. I basically jumped straight into Halo 2. I never played Halo 1, but I still knew what was going on, back during when I was young in the early sort of 2000s and the early Xbox days, right? So to kind of play Halo Infinite and to be completely confused and to completely lost says a lot about somebody who's a hardcore Halo fan. So I decided, in terms of the podcast, that I would go back and I would read the prior novels, read the prior sort of Halo novels of, what came before, to kind of see what 343 had planned for it. Because one thing that 343 has done, other than Bungie put a lot of their story into the games and a lot of their character development into the games. Now, they had side novels, admittedly, but those side novels were just kind of, they were there if you wanted them. It was extended media that if you wanted to know more about certain aspects or certain things that happened before, like the humans and the Covenant met each other, or during like the Human Covenant War, like the Cold Protocol book, for example, then by all means you could do. You was never stringent and you had to stick with them. Whereas with 343, when they took over, they did a lot of extended media. But what I've noticed through reading a lot of the books and like reading some of the comics and stuff like that is the fact of, and obviously playing the games, that 343 really relied on the fact of, our fans would not only play our games, but they will read the books as well. So that when you go into the games, and like I said, from my experience of reading some of the books so far, the books do tie in with the games, which is brilliant, but they seem to tie in a bit too much. Like I've read a few books now that they tie in with Halo 5, which kind of answer a few things in Halo 5 and answer a few things in Halo 4, which is good to have the answers to now. But really, those answers and those questions really should have been in the games. And I should be reading the extended sort of stories and novels to get more of what I already got, not to get the answers that should have been there already. But it's been a fun journey overall. Like Halo New Blood was absolutely brilliant. It expands the story of Halo 3 ODST, which is one of my favorite stories, and I get to see what happens to Buck and how he becomes a Spartan and what happens to his ODST team, what happens to the rookie and all that was brilliant. Hunters in the Dark was great. We go back to the Ark and we really get to see the humans and St. Healy working with each other after the events of Halo 3. So I love that. Halo Saints Testimony was a short story about AI and was brilliant about AI constructs and the rampancy and stuff like that, which I love. Halo Last Light, which I think was the last one that I did last year, was a lot of fun. It kind of took the idea of Halo, but did it in sort of a crime detective sort of mystery direction, which I really appreciated. So far the adventure's been a lot of fun. And today, it is no different. So with the book I'm reading at the moment, I'm about 50% of the way through, Halo Envoy, it is written by Tobias S. Bucknell, who, if you don't know who that is, he's like the OG. He wrote some of the best stories of the Bungie era novels. And one of the best ones he ever wrote was Halo Cold Protocol, which the long and short of it, the Cold Protocol is basically initiative in the Halo universe set by humans, so that while all humans colonies were being attacked on other planets as well as Reach, there was always this protocol that if you get ship-to-ship combat with St. Helios, with the Covenant, you had to do the Cold Protocol, which meant that if you was going to face destruction or worse, they were going to take over your facility, or if they were going to go take over your ships and board, to self-destruct, to delete all files, to self-destruct the ship, to blow up the facility so that no remnants of navigational data, specifically the location of Earth, the solar system of where humans are from, were wiped clean, so they could never reach us back on Earth. Now, obviously, if you played Halo 2 and Halo 3, that doesn't matter because the Covenant eventually get to Halo anyway. I mean, to Earth anyway. But the point is, there was that protocol. It's a brilliant book that really goes into the expansion of the lore and Grey Team and stuff like that. So much to my surprise, when I read this book and realise it carries on the story of Grey Team. But we'll get into that and more shortly in a minute. I want to do the synopsis for this book. So the synopsis goes as follows. So, it's been 6 years since the end of the Covenant War, and yet on the planet Caro, a world on the edge of the joint occupation zone, a decisive new battle suddenly erupts. Human colonists and the alien Sangheli have already been living a tension-filled coexistence in this place, with the UNSC Envoy, Melanie, attempting to broker a lasting peace between the two species. But as civil war now engulfs the Sangheli settlers, Melody must act on an additional covert assignment, courtesy of ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, to find a way to free the Spartan 2s known as Grey Team. Held in stasis since the end of the war by a cunning elite fleet master consumed with vengeance, and none can anticipate the ongoing violence leading to the discovery of an even greater unstoppable threat, one hidden for eons below the surface of the planet. So that is the synopsis for the story. As for my sort of feelings so far, sort of my first impressions, honestly, it's brilliant. It really is. Not to say that the stories up until this point, like the 343 era stories, haven't been great. Like, there's been ups and downs, and there's been some that I've liked more than others, to be honest. But the way that this is written, it feels like the Bungie era of Halo. It feels like the Bungie era of the Halo novels, because what made them so good is that, yes, it was Halo, yes, it was science fiction, but they were human-led stories. They were very sort of powerful in motives. They were very great character work, great dialogue, great scenes, great plots, great story. Everything about them, like, you read them and you was like, I feel more immersed in this story. I feel more immersed in the characters. One of the best ones as well, next to Cold Protocol, was Contact Harvest, which told the story about Sergeant Johnson, how he was going to be a Spartan 1. And you learn more about that, and you get more respect for Sergeant Johnson. So by the time you get to Halo 3 and Halo 1, Halo 2, and you meet him in these stories, you're like, oh my God, Sergeant Johnson is a badass. Like, he does know what the ladies like, because he is, a sort of, he's brilliant. Like, I just don't know a way to explain it. You just have more respect for him and his character because of that story, and the Halo, the Bungie era was just incredible. And that's what I love about this book, is the fact that it feels like, as I'm reading it, I'm not getting bored. I'm not wanting to flick. I'm not wanting to scan read. Like, I'm generally invested in the story and the characters. And I think that's what's taken me so long to get around to this introduction, because usually, with a lot of the books that I read, I tend to kind of get to points where I'm like, okay, I'll read until I'll read like so into the book until I get an idea of what's going on. And by the time I got an idea of what's going on, what the story's about, I'll do the introduction. With this book, I knew kind of straight away, or kind of very close thereby, what goes on in the story, who the players are, who the main sort of characters are, the idea of the story. But I just kept reading because I didn't want to stop. I just wanted to kind of keep going. I wanted to keep delving into this story of the Sanghelios and the colonies of Caro, and their sort of tension that's going on there. But also you have the Envoy, Melody, and that she's trying to talk to Roka, the shipmaster, who is the leader of the Sangheli, the Caden, sort of the leader of this sort of band of Sangheli that are on this planet, and how they're trying to broker a peace treaty after the war, because it's still kind of very tension-filled, because the Sangheli glassed a lot of planets, and a lot of the refugees that came back to Caro had to leave the planet because the planet was being glassed by the Sangheli, by the Prophets, by the Covenant during the war. So it's very tension-filled.
because the Sanghelium got nowhere to go. They don't want to live on Sanghelios because there's a civil war going on there with the Arbiter and other sort of Jerahane and other Sanghelios there. So they don't want to live there. They want to live on this planet. So they were already there after the end of the war. Then the humans come back and they're like, hold on a second, but this is our planet. It belongs to us. So you've got this like peace treaty that's trying to be sort of won there. Then you have this other story that's going on where you've got the Grey Team, you've got the Spartans. And again, I haven't seen the likes of Grey Team since the end of Cold Protocol. I did think actually while I was reading this one, would it be worth going back and reading that one to kind of bring myself back up with the Grey Team? But the way this is written and the way Tobias has written it, I don't feel like I need to, because as I'm reading it, I'm getting straight back into the shoes. Like, oh my God, I remember this character. I remember this. It feels like I read Cold Protocol yesterday. Like I'm just jumping straight back into the next story. I don't feel lost, even though it was years and years ago that I read that story. I don't feel lost with the characters. They feel right. They feel comfortable. It feels like an old coat. Like I feel like I know where I am with this story. So with Grey Team, you got that story and them being woken up and why they're being woken up. Again, I'm being intentionally vague because I don't want to give any story plots away at the moment. Then you've got the Jerahane, the Brutes, why they're there. And then you've got Roka, you've got his cousin Tars, and the relationship they've got is a very rough relationship, how they're at war with each other, because basically the book starts where, you've got Roka and Tars. These two shipmasters, these cousins, this and Helios, are both at war with each other, fighting each other, because Roka wants to have a peace treaty between the humans and the Zinghili with his band. But Tars is like, no, we was here first. We should kill all the humans. So you got that going on, and you've got the whole vengeance between Roka and the demons, as the Spartans, as he calls them, the demon free. You got that story plotline going on, and obviously, like I said, you got the Jerahane who is allied with Tars, but the Jerahane have got their own plans of things that they want to do because there's a big secret on this planet. And again, I ain't going to get into it because I don't want to ruin it. But as I'm reading for this story, even though you've got all these different story threads, and it could sound very convoluted, it could sound like, oh God, it's easy to get confused. I'm not lost. I'm not confused. Everything is concise and planned and thought out. Everything makes sense. You've also got this whole side plot of the humans of Cairo, this militia. You've got the governor, you've got the people that live there. Their city is being destroyed by the Jerahane because they're digging for something, which I know what it is, but I'm not going to get into it. But they're digging for something. So you've got the humans trying to fight off the Jerahane, trying to fight off the Ungoi, trying to fight off the Sangheli sort of soldiers, while there's a battle going on above them between two warring Sangheli. So like this whole planet is at a war, but there's wars being fought on loads of different fronts. And it's brilliant. The characters are interesting. I'm just enthralled. It's not like Halo New Light, the last one, which took a very long to get going, and like it was set in one place and it took forever. And even though I enjoyed it, it was just one of those of like, oh, come on, get on with it now. Like we've been in this location too much. Like we're underground, but with this one, like you're in space now. Now you've crash landed on the planet. Okay, now you're on the planet. This thing's happening. You're in the desert, but at the same stage, you got this happening. You've got the Brutes are digging here, and they found this like mysterious ancient artifact, and they're dealing with that. And then you've got the human militia, very on the boots, on the ground, dogfighting, trying to guerrilla tactics, trying to sort of slow the progression of the enemy through the city, street by street. And you've got the governor trying to find out plans. But by the way, the humans don't know that there's a Spartan team on the planet. So you've got the Spartans doing what they're doing. They don't know that they're there. They're just trying to fight their own. Well, they don't know what's going on in the rest of the story. So they're fighting their story. Then you've got the sort of elites got doing their own story. And again, it sounds convoluted, but it's not. It's so well written. And Tobias just does a brilliant job here. And this is what I mean. This reminds me of old Halo novels, because this is how they were written. You didn't have like in these new books with the free for free, you've got so much techno babble. You've got so much sort of military jargon to make it, oh, this is a rough and tough military book. None of that is here. It's just a human story of war, of the lengths that species will go to save their own people. Like the humans would do it, the Sanghelios, the lengths they would do, revenge. But if anything, you could say like it's a Western in a way. And it's just brilliant. Like, there's no need for this techno babble, this techno jargon, these military sort of, whiskey tango foxtrot and all that. You don't need it. You're just telling a story that happens to have aliens in it, that happens to be on a planet that's not Earth. And that's why it works, I feel like, because it's just a story about species trying to survive. It's a science fiction book, yes, based off a video game, yes, but you take all that away and it's just about species trying to survive, but also going to war, but also revenge, about this idea of getting revenge, and this idea of making mistakes and that having regret for something that you did where you felt like at the time it was the right thing to do, but now that you've realized a lot of time has passed, you quickly realize, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. If we had known, we wouldn't have done it. And again, I can't go into that. I'll probably go into it when we get to the review. But that's something that is dealt with by certain characters in this story. And it feels so empathetic. It feels such a human-led story that happens to have aliens in it. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but I'm just so enthralled of it. I'm just amazed that now, after all these books that I've read up until this point, we have finally got a book that just feels like Halo. It feels, it's not trying too hard to tell a story. It's not trying too hard to show off that, oh, it's a scientific book. Like, no. It's just telling a story that happens to be in the Halo universe. And that's it. And that's why, again, I said before, why I love the Gears of War books. Of like, they are just books about human struggle. That does also happens to be in the world of Gears of War, in the world of like going against the Locust and all of that sort of thing that's going on. It's a human-led story, and that's why I enjoyed them so much. And it's the same thing here. So as you can tell, my feeling so far is very positive. And I've been talking for 16 minutes of just being very vague, but generally, it's a really good story, and I can't wait to finish it. So now the introduction is done. I'm going to go off and finish this book, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about my first impressions, the story, the characters. Hopefully, we can talk about the continuity, and there is a lot of continuity in this one that really sort of leads into a lot of other things, which, again, there's mentions of like Halo 2 characters, and Halo 2, Halo Wars 2 characters and Atriox, and that's really good for me because he's the big player in Halo Infinite. So there's a lot to talk about, and then we'll talk about my overall thoughts. So I'm going to go off and read this book, and then we're back. We'll talk about my thoughts and feelings on Halo Envoy. So I'll see you all in a flash. And welcome back, everybody. Thank you for rejoining me. So I've now finished Halo Envoy. I actually finished it late last night. And honestly, first impressions it's absolutely brilliant. I was right in my sort of assumptions, as I mentioned in the introduction, was that this does and wholeheartedly feels like the old school days of the Bungie Halo era. Of like, you don't need all this technobabble, techno jargon. Not that the old books didn't have it, they did. But it was a fact of characters came first. Like, yes, it was set in the Halo universe. Yes, it was sci-fi. Yes, it was, had aliens and stuff like that. That all was true. And that's fine because, again, that's the world that it's meant to be in. But it was very human-led. It was very story-led, characters-led. Like, that was the key. You had the characters and you had the story first, and then you built the world around it. You didn't just build the world and then put the characters in. As a lot of the newer sort of 343 books have that kind of feel to them, is the fact of, oh, well, we've got this huge world and we're just going to put some characters in it, and then we're going to put the Forerunners in it, and that's it, and we're just going to see what happens. I'm like, yeah, you can do that, and it does work, and it has worked. I've done a few reviews where that's worked. But to me, being somebody who loves stories, being somebody who is an avid reader, who reads all the time, what I look for the most in books and stories are characters, are the story, because they're the ones that keep you interested. Just because a story has a good plot, if the characters aren't there, you're not going to keep reading. You'll be like, oh yeah, interesting plot, but the characters fall flat. And that's a lot of the issues. Not with this book, though. Every single character, every single event, everything that happens is important. It is interesting, it's fascinating. The characters feel lived in. But the characters feel that well written. It feels like, even though I've met a lot of these characters for the first time in this book, they are written in such a way where I feel like I know them, where I feel like I've seen them in the video games. I've gone on adventures with them. They feel real. They feel lived in. They feel like I've gone down the road to the corner shop and I've met this bloke, at the pub or whatever. He feels like a real person, or somebody who lived. They don't feel like characters in a book, and I can't quantify that. But if you're an avid reader, you know what I mean. They just feel lived in and real. And the story is fascinating as well. Like I'm going to go into a bit of spoilers when I get around to talking about the story. So if anybody's interested in this book, just be aware there will be a few sort of light spoilers here and there. I don't want to give too much away, but they like I said, they will be spoilers. But even the story itself is incredibly fascinating because, as I mentioned in the introduction, one thing that I love about the story is that even though you have so many things going on at once, it never feels convoluted, right? So I'm going to try my best and break the story down a little bit. And like I said, it's going to be a little bit of spoilers, but overall, I'm going to keep a lot of the juicy stuff away. So you're on the world of Caro, right? And this world, it's currently kind of, I would say, like a stalemate, sort of a somewhat not very a potential civil war, but it hasn't got to war yet. So on this planet, which used to had loads of life on it, was glassed during the Covenant War by the Senghili, under the guise of the prophets, and that meant that a lot of the humans that lived on this planet that settled it had to leave, and they went to leave, and then the war with the Covenant ended, and then some Senghili that were left that helped to fight against the prophets. The Arbiter basically said to them, like, look, you can go settle on this world on Caro. 6 months later, after the elites, the Sanghelios, had already landed on this planet, the refugees, the people that lived on the planet before that left, had now returned. And now that you have these two warring sort of people that don't really like each other, and for fair enough reason, because it was the Sangheli, it was the elites that glassed the planet, that mean the people had to leave. But at the same stage, the fact of now they've come back to reclaim their homeland, to rebuild their city that was destroyed. The elites are already there, and they're sectioned between a huge desert. And on one side of the desert, it's the elites in they're building their own little city, and then the other side is the ruins of the old city that the humans have got. And the elites saying, like we were here first, so we've renamed the planet or we've renamed the area. Well, and the humans like, no, this planet is called Caro. This is what we call it. You can't rename it. So the UNSC and the UEG, which is the United something, hold on, United something group. I can't really remember. Basically, the UEG is basically they run a lot of the outer sort of colonies things. So after the war, as you can imagine, the UNSC don't really have the power and the strength to govern a lot of the outer colonies as they did before the Covenant invaded. So a lot of the outer colonies are out there on their own. They have to govern themselves without the UNSC. And a lot of them like it like that. A lot of them don't want to be governed by the UNSC. They want to have their own life, their own government, their own existence. And the UNSC just lets them do it. But because of the sort of rising tensions between the Senghili and the humans on this planet, and because they're trying to broker more peace between the other sort of bands of Senghili with the Arbiter, and the UNSC are trying to grow a better relationship with them, they send an envoy in to kind of broker peace. And that's where sort of the main character, the main envoy, comes in. And the main envoy, Melody, she is being put onto a Senghili ship with a fleet master called Roka, and he is like the Caden. He is the leader of these elites on this planet, and he's basically trying his best to broker peace. While this is going on, because like the beginning of the book just begins straight away where they're in a civil war. While this is going on, Roka's cousin Thars has basically gone, no, screw the humans, you shouldn't broker peace, this is wrong, this is our planet, it belongs to us, we were here first, I can't believe you side with the humans. And you realize a bit later on, which I'll get to, as to why he doesn't like humans. It's not just because of the prophets. There is a general reason why he despises humans. And so Roka's basically like, he's trying his best. He's got loads of ships that have been scavenged because this little band of Senghili that are on this planet, they've not got the support of the prophets anymore. They're on their own. So a lot of their ships are recovered, old, derelict ships that have been repaired and built as best they possibly can. So you've got the Senghili on this planet. And what's happening, you've also got, like I said, Thals is in, he's got the Jerahane, the brutes. He's brought brutes along to basically to kill his cousin, Roka, and all of the traitor of Senghili, as well as kill all the humans and to take the planet for himself. So the Envoy's trying to stop this with Roka. While you've got this going on, right, you've also got the humans, where you've got like the Governor Ellis, and you've got the engineers, and you've got all the people of this this city. All the governor sort of people are coming together, and they're sort of boots on the ground, trying to fight back against the brutes, trying to fight back against the Ungoi, like the sort of grunts and stuff like that, the little sort of other Senghili on the ground. So you've got militia groups and they're fighting. While that's all going on, you've also got Hekub, who is the leader of the Jerahane. He's got his own little sort of side sort of scheme going on, that he's digging underground for something. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. So he's underground digging. He's looking for a certain thing, and he's got this artifact that he stole from the prophets during the schism. So you've got his little thing going on. And then you lead on with the grey team, which is the Spartan team, right? And as I mentioned, I had experience with grey team, but it's been that long that I didn't fully remember them, but I instantly fell in love with them because, like I said, the writing is that good that even though I haven't experienced these characters for years, like I think I was in college when I last read the Halo novels, right? It's been a long, long time, right? That being said, they're so well written that you just instantly be like, oh yeah, Grey Team. I remember Grey Team. You just fall right into them. You just fall straight back into sort of the motion of like, oh yeah, no, this Spartan team is legit. I love them. You haven't got to sort of set things up. You haven't got to go through long-winded talking about backstory about he's got this many sort of medals and recommendations, blah, blah. No. It's the fact of these are the Spartans. You could instantly tell their characters, of who they are, their personalities, that sort of thing. You go straight forward. It's absolutely really well done and brilliant, right? So you've got a great team that Roka has found, and Roka had basically decided that he's going to keep these as a bargaining chip, as a way to kind of broker peace, that he was going to give these Spartans that have been cryogenically frozen 6 years at the end of the Human Covenant War, and he was going to give them back to the humans as like a bargain. Basically, it's like, oh, I've got something that you want, here you go, have them, but I in return, because how much they're worth, I want something something big out of it, right? So he's Roka's a brilliant character because he's just looking out for his people. It's all he wants. He wants peace among his people. He doesn't care if it's with humans or what. He just wants peace. He wants a new home for his people. And as their leader, it's his job and his duty to make sure that they're safe and that they're looked after. So it doesn't matter who he aligns himself with. It's just the fact of, look, I just want what's good for my people. And it's so brilliant, so well done. And like, they're getting attacked, and Melody's like, look, we're being attacked. The only way that we can really defeat or defend ourselves is that, we've got to wake up these Spartans. And like, Roka's like, no, you will not open the demon tree. You will not open them. I don't allow it. If we're going to die, we're going to die honorably, because obviously in the Senghili species, in their religion, it's this idea that you die with honor, that if you're going to die a warrior's death, so go down, fight him. And like Roka even says to Melody, it's like, do you want me to kill you now? And she goes, well, why would you say that? Why would you want to kill me now? And he goes, well, because if you die by my blade, at least it'll be an honorable death. Whereas if my cousin gets you, Thars, he will not give you an honorable death. So you can decide to die by my hand now. It is not as a threat, just an honorable way of like, and I will make sure it's quick and painless and as honorable as I can possibly make it. Or you let my cousin, and he gets hold of you, and he'll be torture. Like, he will kill you very slowly, very dishonorably, And Melody's like, no. If I'm going to fight, I'm going to fight. So she goes off and sneaks, and she ends up waking like the demon tree. Roka's pissed off at this. He's like, you disobeyed me. Like, I thought you lied to me this whole time. We meant to broker peace between ourselves, and you've been on my ship, and I gave you full reign, and you betrayed me. And as the story goes on, again, I'm not going to go beat for beat, but as the story goes on, you realize why Roka hates the demon tree and why he feels so betrayed by Melody because of what the Grey Team, which is what obviously is their name, but it's what the Senghili called them, the demon tree, or at least Roka does, because they call Spartans demons. If you play the games, you'll know. Anyway, So you find out what they did, and you find out why Thars didn't like them. And it turns out that Grey Team, just before the event, the sort of during like the events of like Halo 3, just during like the ending of the Human Covenant War. I won't say what because it's a bit of a good surprise. But Grey Team is involved in a certain event, shall we say. And this event caused for the death of a whole species on this planet. The whole planet was just wiped, and they were involved in that. And for 6 years, while in cryosleep, they've lived with this. They lived with this sort of regret, this trauma, this idea of did what we do was right. And I won't give anything away, but they live with that, only to wake up 6 years later by Melody to find out that the Human Covenant War is over, that humanity won, and humanity not only won, but now we are in sort of a relationship between humans and Sangheili. Because this book is set in 2558, so this is the most recent, closest to Halo Infinite, Halo 5 book that I've read so far while reviewing this series, right? So Grey Team has to deal with the fact of, hold on a second, if what you're saying is true, and that we are friends with the Sangheili, does that mean that what we did, what's going to happen to us? Like, what does that mean? Like, should we have waited? Should we have not have waited? Should we have made the call? Did we have any right to do it? Again, I wish I could go into more detail, but I don't want to spoil it because it is a brilliant piece of writing, and it works incredibly well when you don't really know fully what as to why. But rest assured, when you find out, everything clicks. Everything makes sense as to why Roka hates them so much, why Thars hates them so much, why Thars is so against the humans, why he's like, Roka, you know what happened. Why are you working with them? And humans have the same sort of argument as well. Like, look, you glassed our planets. You wiped out hundreds of planets, and you killed billions of humans, young and old, children, old people. You killed way more than what Grey Team killed. So what right do you have to judge us, to judge Grey Team on what we did? You know what I mean? And again, there's these sort of questions, these sort of things that are coming up in this book I haven't seen, again, since the Bungie era, where they literally have general sort of questions about life, about rights, about this idea of what right do you have to call us evil when, yes, they did what they did, but you did it 10 times more constantly. So much so that you managed to fight to every planet and get to our home planet Earth, and we're still trying to do the same thing there. How right do you have to call us wrong and evil when you did it more than we did, and we did it once? And things like that. Like, some of the questions, I'm sitting there like, whoa, this is really deep for a Halo novel, because I haven't experienced that for a long time. Like I said, last time I read those sort of stories was the Bungie era, and the 343 era. Even though it's dealt with interesting topics and it's gone in interesting directions, it's never been this deep. It's never gone this level where you sit there and you go, oh no, that's a fair comment, that's a fair argument. Yeah, what right do you have? And I'm sitting there, I'm on the side of the humans, but at the same side, the Sangheili, when Roka's having his arguments with Melody, or he's talking to Thars, I'm sitting on the side of the Sangheili of like, no, yeah, okay, so I can see both sides, and this is what I mean. But everything is so well written where you can understand both sides, what's going on. So you got that story, whole thing going on, and like Grey Team gets away, and Roka goes hunting for him. He goes on like a vengeance. So he basically like crashes his ship into the desert, follows the Grey Team down to the planet's surface, and he hunts them across the surface. And you got that story going on with like Melody and the Spartans, and you learn about Oni, Office of Naval Intelligence, their kind of the spy group, what they're doing there, why they're on the planet, what's that got to do with Melody. Again, I'm not going to give anything away, but let's rest assured there is a point to it all, and it also links to Hecub, who is the Jerahane, the brute chieftain. Again, I'm not going to go through spoilers with him, but what I will say with him, he's like I said, he's found this like artifact that he basically stole during the schism on the High Charity, which was the ship that the prophets lived and controlled the Covenant from. And this device allows him to control these creatures called the Sharkoi. Now, if you know your Halo lore, and when I say Halo lore, I mean specifically Halo development, video game development. So during the creation of Halo 1, during the early stages, they had these creatures called the Sharkoi, and they were giant hulking sort of creatures, tiny heads, big sort of hulking bodies, huge hands with claws, big sort of clawy sort of mouths. And this was like back in the days when Halo originally was going to be a third-person shooter, not a first-person shooter. And they had these idea for these creatures, the Sharkoi, but they ended up having to cut them because they just didn't work. And it was the same with Hunters in the Dark. They had like little reptile sort of creatures on there that was in the book that originally was going to be in the game, but they had to cut from the game. So I love that. I love how some of the books are taking creatures and elements from the game's development, like the early development, and bringing them in, being like, oh, we couldn't put them in the game, but we can still have them in the world and in the universe. I really love that. But Hekub has basically got this device that controls the Sharkoi, and like these big hulking sort of creatures. They're old sort of Forerunner sort of technology. And this helmet, this thing, allows him to, like I said, control them. And you learn more about the Sharkoi. You learn more about the idea behind. Okay, I'm trying to be intentionally vague without giving too much away. But you learn about these creatures and how that even the Forerunners didn't use them, that they were that dangerous and that they were hard to control, that even the Forerunners didn't use them. The Prophets knew about them, but that even the Prophets didn't dare use them, even though that they could have used them and wiped out humanity a lot quicker than they did, and could have successfully destroyed humanity. And even if the Spartans, even with the humans having Spartans and trying to fight back, still the Spartans wouldn't be able to go up against a whole pack of these Sharkoi. That even then they still wouldn't use the Sharkoi. So when this chieftain comes along and he goes on to use them, and what that means and the effect that has on Hekub, on the chieftain, it gets quite scary. It gets quite intense to the point where you get to the end of the story, and all parties have met each other. So you've got Roka. They're all in the city. Roka's in the city with his Helios. You've got Grey Team, you've got Melody, you've got the governor and his her militia and all her people and all her weapons and stuff like that. And all of them are just against the Sharkoi. All of them are against this common goal because they quickly realise the fact of, we've got to stop fighting each other. We've got to work together, because if we don't, then if Hekub defeats us and gets off this planet, it's not just going to be the fact of, take this planet and keep it. He's going to come off this planet and he's going to conquer all, and he's going to take over everybody, and everybody, all of St. Helios is going to go. He's going to kill all St. Helios. He's going to kill all the human colonies. He's going to go after Earth. He's going to kill everything, right? He's going to be like a plague. It's going to be 10 times worse than the Covenant ever was. And so they put everything aside and they work together. And even like Roka, like he realized, look, I have my vengeance against the demon free, but I'm willing to put down everything and fight against you because this is a greater threat. This is a greater problem than what we're facing. And it's brilliant. And again, I don't want to ruin it, but like the end of the book for me, it could have gone on longer. Like it was long, but it could have gone on longer. I would have happily gone like very sort of boots on the ground, sort of close quarters combat on the streets. They're saying healing with humans, fighting off the Sharkoi being like giant beasts, just ripping people apart, running up, like literally being like berserkers from Gears of War, just charging down streets, just having blood smears, like just people popping. Like the gore in it is like, I haven't experienced this type of gore in a Halo novel for a very, very long time. This sort of body horror, that sort of thing, and it's incredible. It really is. And like I said, it's so well written, and I was just absolutely floored that I'm sitting there thinking, I really hope the momentum keeps up. I really hope that even though the next book isn't written by the author, I really hope it keeps that momentum. I really hope it keeps going, because this is the Halo novel that I want to read. This is why I started reading them in the first place, because they were this good. Because the story and the characters were this good. Like, there's hardly any techno babble. There's no hardly jargon, none of that. It is literally about a battle of survival, about vengeance, about what do you call home? What is home? And how would you go about defending that once is now your home? It might not be the place that you were born. It might be the place where you're from, but it's a place where you are now, and you're going to defend it and look after it. It's your home. And what does that mean? And what does it mean to put your differences aside and to stand next to an enemy who's now a friend against a greater threat? And what does that mean in the whole band and brothers idea behind it, of coming together, fighting a common enemy, a common goal? And then what are the after effects of that, of like, look, we hate each other before, but now that we've solved this problem, how are we best going to live together? Should we live together? And what does that, and what does that mean? And there's so many questions that it asks, and it answers every single one of them, but you're not left hanging dry for any sort of questions. Every sort of question that's asked, hypothetically or what, is answered, and by the end of it you are left feeling like, oh yeah, I have just experienced a full story. I know it's weird to say, but you feel like, oh, I've experienced a full event of a story, a whole war, a whole battle, a whole years of fighting. I've experienced a whole emotional roller coaster on both sides. I empathize. I understand the Singhili, where they're coming from. I understand where the humans are coming from. I understand that that about Grey Team, about how they feel about themselves, because you don't get that from Spartans, because Spartans are not allowed to show emotion. Spartans are meant to be sort of, we're here, we're going to come save the day. They're meant to be sort of not speak, just giants sort of walking, kind of like Terminators, really. They come, they solve the problem, they leave. They're not meant to have emotions, they're not meant to question orders or question if what they did was right. It's just the fact of, we're set you to do this, do the mission, come home and complete it, whatever means. If it means sacrificing yourself to get the mission done, then that's what you have to do. And that's just what Spartans have always done. So to have these 3 Spartans questioning themselves of like, did we do the right thing? Did we have the right? Should we have waited? After what, like going to sleep thinking what we did was the right thing and that it was going to save humanity, only to wake up 6 years later and to realize that it didn't matter if they did it or not. Humanity was still saved. But for what cause? Because what they did, was it the right thing or not? Now that they know that what they had done wouldn't have mattered anyway, because humanity was going to win. Obviously, they didn't know that at the time. But then they question that fact of like, should we have waited? But what's going to happen now that when we get back to Earth? Are we going to be like put into prison? Are we going to get court-martialed? Are we going to lose our right? Are we going to become civilians? Like, what's going to happen to us? But again, it's that idea of like, but we can't focus on that now. We've got to focus on the mission. And as Spartans, we've got a job, and our job is to protect humanity. And right now, we've got this threat, and we've got to fight that threat. And like it's just so well written. This whole book is just a book of war, but it's so well written that I'm interested and intrigued all the way through. And even though this book was about 330 something or so pages, I could have happily it gone on longer. I would have happily read more, of these characters, of this story. The story, characters, I love it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. As for the continuity, so there's a few bits of continuity that I noticed. There was a few mentions of Atriox from Halo Wars 2 and Halo Infinite, and talking about the Banished. There was like a few sort of moments of talking about sort of other Spartan teams, obviously Master Chief, the ends of how like the ending events of Halo 3. There was a few other moments where they mentioned sort of the Prophets and like Forerunner technology that had come up before, and little things like that, like tiny little things. But one of the most sort of biggest point for me, and kind of got me excited, but also kind of got me a bit worried because I'm not sure how it's going to pay off and if it will pay off, and I hope it does. Is there's a character that keeps I've noticed this, and I haven't mentioned it because it's only been here and there, but the way this book ends, the epilogue, there's a certain character that pops up, and I will mention the character, but there's a certain character that pops up, and some of the things that they say, it feels very much kind of like Nick Fury in Iron Man. How like at the end of Iron Man, the end credits of Iron Man, Nick Fury appears to Tony Stark and he's like, "Look, I'm putting together a team that something's coming, and I need to put a team together." And again, we all know that means the Avengers. And it's the same sort of thing here. So this one character, who is Saren Osman. Now, Osman is the leader of ONI, of the Office of Naval Intelligence, and she has appeared a few times in a few of the stories. And I just thought, because ONI still has their fingers in the pies, especially when it comes to the Spartans. They still have dealings and sort of control of what the Spartans do and where the Spartans go. I didn't think much of it, but after the events of certain books and the way certain books ended, and the way this one ended, where she appears at the end and she's just like, she's talking to one of her sort of underlings who was dealing with a grey tear at the end of the story. And she basically says to him, something under the lines of, did they go for the deal? Did they decide to stay on as grey team? And the guy was like, yeah, they decided to stay. They didn't want to disband. They wanted to stay as a team. But they weren't very happy about working with other people. And then Osman basically goes, well, they're going to have to get used to working with other people because I'm putting a group together because there's something coming. There's a shadow on the horizon, which are the words that she used, that something is coming. Now, I don't know what that shadow is. I don't know if that's a shadow that's leading to Atriox, leading to Halo Infinite. Again, I don't know because I haven't played that game. Or is it a hint towards Cortana with Halo 5? Again, I don't know. That's quite up in the air. But apparently, there's a shadow on the horizon and there's something coming. Kind of linking to the idea of like Thanos. Thanos is coming. You've got to get ready because the tyrant, the Mad King is coming. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is interesting. Where is this going? And I went onto the Halo wiki just to see this character and to where she appears again. And if I go onto the Halo wiki and I go to, where is it now? Where is it? I can't find it now. Basically, there's a thing on the Halo wiki. We look at appearances where a character. Oh, here we go. List of appearances, right? So she appeared in Glasslands, the Thursday War, Halo 4, Spartan Ops, Halo Escalation, which was I think it was a graphic novel, Halo Mortal Dictator, which that was part of the Thursday War series, like Glassland and all that. I didn't really like those books I mentioned before. Hunt the Truth, Halo's Hunters in the Dark, Halo Last Light, Halo 5 Guardians, limited edition dossier. Apparently she appears in the dossier as well. But one thing that gets me is that after this book, she's in the next book, which is Halo Retribution, right? And I'm starting to think of like, okay, if that story is what I think it is and who's in that story, what is that the team that she's putting together? And I'm more excited to read that next story now to kind of see if she appears in that one. Why does she appear in it? What's happening? What's going on? What's the plans? And I'm really hoping, I've got my fingers crossed. I've got my fingers, toes, legs, everything that I can cross, my eyes crossed and all that jazz. I've got everything crossed, hoping that this is not sort of like hope copium, that I'm just trying to cope. I'm just trying to be like, I'm seeing things where I'm not seeing it. I'm like, I really hope this is not just hype and that this is generally an idea and concept of like, we've got this character. We've got these characters from the stories. Let's do something with them, that's not part of the books. Let's do their own little story. So it's like not everything has to link in with the games, that we can do our own thing. And again, I go back to it. When I did my review of the Bungie era of Halo, one of my overall sort of conclusions was that by the time that Bungie was coming to leave Halo and to give it to 343 and to go on and make Destiny and all the other things they've made since, what they were doing is that they were showing that you could tell stories that in the Halo universe that didn't just follow Master Chief. You had Halo 3 ODST that followed an ODST. Special Forces, yes, but he's not a Spartan. You play the rookie, and it shows that it's like the whole point of that game. I love that game. It's like a murder mystery. You've got to solve what happened. You've got to solve out the mystery. What happened to your team? Why are you on your own? What happened to New Mombasa? Again, completely different story that's ever been done in Halo, but it worked, right? And it's the same with Halo Reach. Halo Reach, you've got Noble Team, you've got a group of Spartans that are not Master Chief and Cortana, and you're telling their story, what happened on Reach. So they left it up so like you don't have to just follow, the games of Master Chief. You can tell other stories in this universe. And again, 343 had it on a string. They had the Empire on a string and they fumbled it, and they just carried on doing Master Chief stories, which was fine. But as we've seen, it just didn't work. And then 4, 5, and Infinite, and yet nobody really talks about Halo as much as they used to. It, when I was younger, like it's not as reviled as it was. It's But anyway, that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make about that is the fact of, if they pull this off, it goes to show that you can tell a story in the novels that doesn't have to evolve around the Master Chief, doesn't have to evolve around the events of the games. It can tell its own story and still be great. So it's got me excited. It's got me hopeful that whatever this is setting up, whatever it's going, whatever is next, for Grey Team, for Osmond, for wherever she appears next, it's got me excited, and especially knowing that she appears in the next book in some capacity. I'm not sure, but I really hope there's more sprinklings of potential. So yeah, I am excited. And to really wrap it up on my overall thoughts, give this one a read. Give it a read. Generally. If you've not been overly impressed with a lot of the other sort of reviews that I've done for the other Halo novels, definitely give this one a go, because it's not like any of the others. It is like classic Halo. It's classic Bungie era Halo. It works. It's so well written, so well done. The characters are fascinating. Everything about it, like you just love it. You really will. Like it's generally really, really good. And like I said, there's a reason why Tobias Bucknell is one of the Godfathers. He's one of sort of the sort of Alpha and Omega, one of the best sort of Halo authors ever, because he was there during the Bungie era of the Halo, of the books. He wrote some of the best books of that era. There's a reason why. When I found out that he wrote this book, I was so excited, because it was his story. It was a story by him, and it goes to show how talented he is, because it just works. It feels like old school. It doesn't feel like anything new. It feels like an old hat. It feels comfortable. It feels right. It feels like it's always been there. It just feels like it belongs. It works. And I just wish they had somebody like him writing the stories for Halo 4, 5, and Infinite. Even though I haven't played Infinite, but from what I've heard, but I will save my judgment when I get there. I am very close now to getting close to Halo Infinite. I think I've got this next story and maybe one or two more, and then it's Master Chief's 2 or 3 Master Chief stories that happened during the events of the Human Covenant War, and then Shadows of Reach, and then I can play Halo Infinite, I believe. Anyway, point is, there's still a lot more to come. So I hope you all enjoyed this one. I hope you all liked it. Like I said, there's not many times I get to fully gush over a book, but this one I couldn't help gush over. And even though I finished it last night, and it was late last night, it was about 1:30 last night, I generally considered, it's like 1:30, but screw it, I'll do a review. I didn't in the end, because it was too late and I was absolutely knackered, and I had work in the morning. So I've been waiting all day at work, and then finally get home, and I'm like, okay, first thing I'm going to do, make a cup of tea, go up to my room and get ready to record, because I've got to talk about this book. So thank you for allowing me to gush and to talk over about this brilliant book. Hopefully I've convinced you all. Hopefully, you're all interested and you want to go check out this novel, because definitely it's worth it. Definitely give it a go. Like it's incredible. And so next one is Halo Retribution. I'm excited for it. I'm interested. Fingers crossed it carries on the story of Osman and what's going on there, and whatever that story entails. And fingers crossed I like it and all that jazz. So thank you very much for joining me. If you want to check my podcast out, more reviews that I've done, by all means go back and check over Halo reviews. Make sure to follow me on Spotify if you haven't already. Again, if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram, just the Howdy Beans podcast. Search it there, and you can check out all the things I have there. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye-bye.